Hey, hello, fourth years. Welcome back to our class. Today we will be discussing the following: types of aircraft presentation, and then we will be also discussing about the classifications of aircraft, the phases of an aircraft, and types of airplane, and lastly, the phases of the flight. So medyo dagan-dagan ito cover, pero these are just short discussions. Yes, because we have to understand lang what are these things that are involved in the inside the aircraft. Okay, so let's begin. Okay, so now let's go to type of aircraft presentation. So first is we have lighter than air. So these aircraft whose lifting capability depends on being inflated with a gas such as hot air, hydrogen, or helium. Okay, so nakaka mga examples later about what is an aircraft na lighter than air. Then sunod we have aircraft whose lift is produced by a reaction between aerofoil and motion through the air. And then we have power driven, that is aircraft whose propulsion through the air is supported by engine power. And then we have a non-power driven, which is an aircraft whose propulsion through the air is derived from gravity and aerodynamics and is not supported by engine power. Okay, so airplane, we have an airplane which is a fixed wing aircraft whose lift is produced by a reaction between fixed wings and motion of air about them. So then lastly we have the rotorcraft or the rotary wings, which is an aircraft whose lift is produced by rotating wings. So iraw, okay? So these are the different types of aircraft. So one is you can classify them based on three categories. First is according to the basic design. Okay, ganun siya. Second is we have according to the principle of propulsion through the air. Isa man ang iyahang paagi para makalupad siya. Is it kanang like itindog lang siya sa yuta then palit siya sa aka or kinahanglan pa ba siya og kinahanglan pa ba siya kanang sana ka bitong thrust nga para kinahanglan mo daghan pa siya layo before siya maka-take off. And then last is the design of the wings. So unsa nga klase nga wings man siya? Kato ba siyang duha ka wing or wala ba siya wing? Depende na siya. So we have here now. So, one naman na ganina. So, in categorizing the aircraft, first is we have lighter than air. Diba? Katong ganina, lighter than air. Now, these types of aircraft are the ones that are using balloons or airships. Okay, so kung pan pa, this is a hot air balloon. So, kani siyang color rainbow dre nga balloon. This is the hot air balloon. So, may tabuan na, syempre, nakita naman yung siguro mo picture of hot air balloon na ikalayo dito sa ilalom para mukuan siya, mo produce og kainit and then once hot air man good, when we talk about physics, hot air goes up, cold air goes down. Therefore, pag imo siyang ipakuan og init nga kalayo diri, malamang musaka gid siya. And then we have also this one which is the airships. So just basically the same concept. However, dire is hot air ang ginagamit. Dire naman is a gas. There's a gas inside nga makapa-float sa yaha. So that element is called helium. So if you have seen kato mga balloon bitaw nga helium ang gigamit, di ba? Bulutong gid sila. Now that is because helium is lighter than oxygen. So musa kasi yun siya. And then we have heavier than air. So these aircrafts, katulad na siya katong mga metal na ginagamit ng mga bugat nga sagdaan rin mo siya. Di siya musaka or mo float sa hangin. However, these things can still float if you do something. So first category sa heavier than air is we have non-power driven. So these are the gliders. So katong mga glider. This one. Yan, this one. So kanina sa ubos, this is a glider. Okay, makita. Oh my gosh. Yan. So that is a glider. The picture nga nasa ubos. Nga na duha ka wings, then wala siya piraw, wala siya whatsoever. That is a glider. So the way to get it above in the air is two things. Una, is dalo nimo siya sa taas nga parte sa terrain, like kung sa ka mo puntod or pang nga as in habog jud kay nga pang and then musakay mo ni din ipag-glide niyo siya sa ubos and then you will just manipulate the air na dili pa manipulate kay kung magbuhat sa hangin pero kana bang you will just glide through the air and then syempre naman gini mga motions ng air nga kusog kaayo. So inyo siyang banggaan, muhangad mo, musaka mo balik, tapos kung mudungo mo, mudaog na sad mo, ganun. So those are the things to do when you have a glider. And then the second one naman is inyo siyang ikarga o aircraft nga lain. So inyo siyang ipakabit sa eroplano. And then once na naman sa right nga altitude, buyan na rin siya galit and then glide na rin mo paubos. So that is the concept of having a glider. Now, next we have sa heavier than air are the power-driven. So si glider, kaya di mo siya kinanglan makina, kaya mo glide naman siya. So kinanglan na po din sunod. Next is the power-driven. Dire mo gawa si airplane and si rotocraft. Now for rotocraft, these are helicopters and gyrocopters. So katong mga aircraft nga, ang piraw gan nakabutang sa ibabaw. Now these are helicopter and rotocopter something. Helicopter and gyrocopter, sorry. Helicopter si gyrocopter, yes, they will use one piraw lang and then it's usually located at the top of their bodies. So yun ang rotocraft nga aircraft. Then we have airplane which is what we call the land plane, seaplanes, and amphibians. So kani siya, this is an airplane and then pwede ni siya ma-amphibian. Like pwede siya kani ang fa-amphibian. Pwede siya water, pwede siya palandingon nimo sa yuta kay naaman siya yung wheels. And then pwede man siya palandingon og tubig because it has floaters. But this one for Airbus A380, Airbus A380 ba ni? Yeah. Airbus A380 wala na siya ikuan floater. One ra na siya kanang land ra na siyang aircraft. So these types of aircraft are power driven. However, ang difference nila is the airplane, it has two or more engines. Basta kay pares-pares lang. And then for rotocraft naman, usually katong isa ka propeller lang siya or katong piraw. Okay? So the basic design is we have heavier than air and lighter than air. So this is an airplane and this is a lighter than air. Katong sige niya klase airship. Yeah. This is the airship and this is the katong airplane. Then principle of propulsion through air. So some are power driven, which is United States NASA. Of course, the logo of NASA is here. So of course, power driven meaning it needs something like gasoline or energy or sa na to help the aircraft propel. So since kamo ni siya spaceship man siya sa US para outer space expedition, dahok siya engine yung kinahanglan and this is really critical because isang mali lang ani, isang maling liki lang ani. Buto ni siya, mapareha itong mga pilot sa sa US nga namatay gid sila tanan because ni buto man siya and ni apil man po ni siya kabuto. So, yun. And then the other one is non-power driven which is this one, the glider. And then we have the design of wings. So rotocraft has rotary wings. So ilahang LC or ilang piraw, muna ilang wings, di ba, pares. Pero magtuyok-tuyok siya. That's why they fly or they get into the air or off the ground. However, there naman our airplanes are fixed wings. So fixed gina siya and then there's just another engine here sa ubos niya. Mo pa-propel niya. Okay? So this is another example and then we're done with part 1. Next is let's study about the types of airplanes. Okay, types of aircraft. So here naman, gamay lang na siya ng mga ng mga chika-chika. So let's proceed. Okay. Okay, so airplanes vary in size and speed because general aviation does many or varied jobs. So these are the different types of airplanes, guys. So we have single engine, we have twin engine. Okay, so single engine, so isa ra ka buok iyang propeller, nara sa tunga. Then we have twin engine, okay, so duha ka buok, dire. And then we have sport plane, okay. So we'll be discussing kasi kalainan niya sa single engine is sport plane, sir. Then sunod we have cargo plane, of course. From the name itself, it will bring cargo. And then we have turboprop. Okay, so double engine siya. And then, ano man ng difference nila, so we will be discussing it also as well. And then we have business jet. Okay, so sama na sila. First is we have airplanes for personal use and training can be high wing. Okay, remember matong giingon nga high wing, mid wing, ug low wing. Okay, so kung walang ginagmay nga aeroplano, mga Cessna, ganon, it usually uses high wings lang. Itong ganito. So struts support the wings on each side of high wing aircraft. Siyempre, there is still a safety, what do you call this? Kanang part of the airplane. Ginabutangan nila diri og support. Okay, ginabutangan na diri para dili siya mabawog-bawog. Okay, because sometimes the winds up there can be very strong, and then of course dili mo na siya kaabot mo og kanang pila ka thousand of feet, but still it has to be safe. So para to avoid any accidents, kung basi maipo na siya diha, there is a support here. Then we have our low wing. It depends on where the wing attaches to the body of the aircraft. First, wala na siya support because it's below the body of the aircraft naman. So it's much safer pod ug diha siya nakabutang. Still the same concept. Di na siya yung mabutangan og so andere ka ng support diri sa ibabaw kay the wind that goes to the airplane pushes the aircraft above. So murag pahangad mo na airplano ga kuan ga galupad. So something is like it's like gliding lang gyapon. Okay? So this sport plane also is a biplane because it has two wings, okay? One high and one low. Now this biplane has its third wheel in the back under its tail, so it's called a tail dragger. This one, kani siya, tail dragger. Yun siya. Okay? Sorry. Third wheel. We're talking about third wheel pa. Sorry. So, third wheel dire, syempre, pag, ikaw daw kuno, pag naduwara ka ligid ng tubangan, and sa likod wala, masaguyod ang sa likod. So, it has to have a third wheel or the tail dragger. Now, retractables fly faster than fixed gear airplanes, tucking the wheels inside between takeoff and landing. So, if nakita niyo din, naman ninyo, dire na actually ligid. Then, pagkabad rin na wala na. Retractable ang ligid niya. Now, those aircrafts are faster. Yun naman. The wind will not cause drag sa wheels. So, labit mo ka ng babag or musagang sa hangin. So, manang mas kusog siya makalupad. Okay? Float planes land on water using pontoons or floats. Some also have wheels so they can land on runways. So that is called amphibian. But sometimes wala man na siya. So purely mahimura na siyang float plane. Pero wala na siya nasa ligid gani, it's called an amphibian. Pwede sa yuta, pwede sa tubig. Seaplanes put their fuselage in the water, and with retractable wheels, amphibians can also use runways. So, there are seaplanes nga purely tubig lagi siya, and then napoy uban nga pag matawag na siya amphibian, malagi na maibot-ibot ang wheels. So this is a twin engine airplane or twin because it has two engines and propellers. So simply put, pag may ganang twin engine, duwa gid ang kabuk makina. Okay, so then we have no line here. Ay, sorry. So we have turboprop. So turboprop propeller is powered by a turbine or jet engine. Smaller airplanes like cars use a piston engine. Okay, so katong mga gagmate nga mga airplane, um, just like cars, they just use the piston engine. But for turboprop, medyo kusog-kusog na siya. Mas bugat naman good siya. So these types of aircrafts need a stronger propeller. That's why it's called turboprop. Turboprops are fast business planes but can still use small or rough runways. So muna siya yung advantage sa turboprop kay pwede din mo siya mapalanding balag imo ang runway is dili semento, di daw kayo kay gamay raman siyang aircraft pero it still needs that strong power to fly. So some business jets fly faster and many fly higher than airliners. Okay, so muna siya may example niya. Sometimes they fly higher and faster. Okay, that's it for that part or lesson. Okay, so this ano naman guys, this part of the lesson we'll be talking about the phases, yung phases of an aircraft. So gamay ra ni siya, but I didn't find any sources online, so kuha na lang ko, nag-review na lang ko balik sa kong lessons sa aviation before. But there are three phases of an aircraft. Actually, guys, dili siya nato pag-count. We call it, we say three, but when we count in the aviation, thumb down. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have three phases of the aircraft. First is the forward section or the front. We call it forward or the front. So dito nakabutang ang cockpit, dito magtrabaho ang pilot, muna siya forward. Then second is we have the overwing or the mid part. So si overwing naman nakabutang dito ang pasahero, ang fuselage rather, fuselage na dito ang pasahero, na dito ang galley, na dito ang mga lavatory. So that is dito nga part. That's where you can find the overwing for the mid part. And then the third one is the aft or after, or meaning rear end section sa aircraft. So kanang ikaw sa aeroplano, that is the aft section. Your black box, itong information dito, itong machine yung record sa mga information in case magka-plane crash, i-record nyo dito para magkabuto, hindi siya maguba, hindi siya maguba, pakitaon siya sa mga investigators, and then they will determine kung na-crash ang aeroplano. So dito sa aft section nakita ang black box. Ganun ibutang man dito, sir. Of course, pag mag-crash mo ng aeroplano, hindi siya pwedeng ibutang sa tubangan. Kaya kung nad na siya sa tubangan, saka kusog sa impact, pwede siyang maguba. Kinaaman ang kuan naman ang usually pagbabangga, unang ginang ulo, di ba? Unang ulo sa aeroplano. So, hindi siya pwede ibutang ang black box sa tubangan kaya kung siya. Kaduha, reason, hindi po siya pwede ibutang ni musok overwing sa mid part because na dito ang cargo, naapod to ang gasolina. So if dito siya ibutang, pag mabuto ang gasolina, mabuto pod ang mabuto pod ang black box. So gapon yung gapon siya. So dito siya gibutang sa aft kaya wala man kay ganap dito. Wala gasolina dito, pinaka-last siya nga maigo sa impact na siya sa. So mas safe ang black box pag nasa dito. Wala na siya dito. Dito nakabutang ng mga signal something, ng mga connections dito sa aircraft para sa tower. Dito talaga nakabutang usually. So yeah, those were the three phases of the aircraft. Not the phases of the flight we discussed, pero we'll go ahead with types of airplane muna. Okay, so now let's go to the aircraft types and structures. So these are the types of aircraft. First, we have military aircraft. Okay, so there have two types of aircraft, have military and civilian aircraft. So first, military. So these types of aircraft are used by the armed forces of different countries. Okay, so mga Philippine Air Force, US Air Force, Marines, Navy, ganun na usually nagagamit po na sila ng plano. So anything ang ginagamit sa military aircraft, that is military aircraft. They use it for just in case there are wars that will break out, there are calamities that will come or arrive. So the biggest military aircraft is the USSR Antonov in Russia. Pinakadako nga aeroplano sa tibuok kalibutan, si Russia ang nag-invent, dili si US. Then we have civilian aircraft. So these types of aircraft are used for the purpose of transportation. Of course, hindi rin ng mga travel, mga Cebu Pacific, mga ganon, Philippine Airlines. So anything na pwede ka makapalit ng ticket, that is a civilian aircraft. Okay? Also, we have the civilian aircraft. There are two types. First is a private and a commercial. Okay, so sa civilian aircraft, naiduha, private and commercial. So private aircraft, these types of aircraft are used by VIPs for their traveling purposes. So the passenger capacity is maximum of 12. So the private aircraft guys, kato na ni mga rich ang maka-afford sa mga Manny Pacquiao, mga Henry C, mga Lusyutan, mga Ramon S. Ang, kala sila mga level, mga Donald Trump. And actually, si Donald Trump, kaya iyahang private aircraft, kaya ako kayo. Paano man niya? Airbus man niya. Anyway, usually, for private aircrafts, the capacity is just maximum of 12. And everything you need is there. So, inside, na yung mga amenities sa sulod, pwede na ka matulog dito, ganun. And you have to hire your own pilot. So, you have to be very rich. So, the person that I know sobrang kadato niya, he doesn't have a parking lot of cars. Diba? When you dato na siya, okay, dato na siya sakyanan, dito na. This person, this celebrity doesn't have that. Hindi siya nag-collect of cars. Yang gina-collect ang plano. As in, pag mulingi kasi ang garage, it's a runway itself. So, this person is John Travolta. As in, si John Travolta, guys, he is known to be he's known to be an aviation enthusiast to the point nga pag-announce sa Airbus nga nagama sila og Airbus 380, which is the biggest commercial aircraft in the world. Hinghangyo si John Travolta sa Airbus nga pwede ba sa kuan nila sa gani ganun bitong flight nga kanang first time nila mo fly sa as a commercial aircraft kanang magpasahero na sila. Ihangyo si John Travolta sa company nga pwede ba nga mag co-pilot siya or mag first engineer siya sa aircraft. So yun, gisugtan siya and then I think sa Emirates Navigator sa Qatar Airways pag inaugurate sa Airbus 380 as in ni kuan gid siya ni nilingkod gid siya sa cockpit as a pilot ana. Pero wala siya nag main kuan yun kay kinahanglan siyempre you have to be certified to fly. Iyaha lang is kanang achievement na kito sa iya habang nakasulay siya og fly sa Airbus A380 on its first inauguration, so inaugural flight. Yon. So ano siya ka-powerful, ano siya kadato. Wala siya nanguliktag cars, nangolekta siya eroplano. Grabe. Well, anyway, next we have commercial aircraft. So these types of aircraft carry both passengers and cargo. Okay, so these naman are the Philippine Airlines, the Pacific, you name it. So ano sila, magdala sila ng mga bagahe and magdala po sila pasahero. So for commercial aircraft, there are three types. Okay, so kanina there is civilian aircraft. Dahil duha. Let's go naman to commercial. For commercial aircraft, there are three types. Okay, first is passenger aircraft. Pasahero lang. Okay, walay dalang mga bagahe, walay man. Travel light. Kung nakadalong damit, bag lang mo yung backpack, yun lang. Then next is we have cargo aircraft. So pag cargo aircraft, katulad ng mga DHL, mga FedEx, ng mga aircraft, ganon. Cargo ra ilang karga. And then the third one is the combination of both. So sa Cebu Pacific, mapakarga siya og mga bagahe, mga karton, mga packages, makarga po siya og mga pasahero. Nga nga klase. Okay. Now for passenger aircraft, this aircraft is designed to carry passengers on the main deck and cargo in the lower deck. So this is the main deck. Okay. This is, I believe, dili pa ata ni siya Airbus A380 kay twin engine naman. But anyway, and kung po siya for exit. So I think ano siya Airbus A320 ra ni. Yeah. Well, anyway, this aircraft has the main deck. Okay, so this is where your passengers sit. Now these are exits. In case of emergency, pwede na siya abrihan and then yun, magawas ni mga floaters ani para mo slide lang mo paubos. Okay. And then the cargo on the lower deck. So here naman, tambok siya sa ilalom because these are all cargo. And except for this part, can depit sa wings. This is gasoline. Guys, gasoline na siya. Ayun. So commercial passenger aircraft contains, since may nasa sa commercial passenger aircraft, itong wala yung mga bagahe ha. So first is you have the restroom or the lavatory. Then you have galley area for food and drinks can be prepared. So dito magama og pagkaon, ganon. Prepare seat attendant of food. And then entertainment system. So na ay mga music dito sa sulod, na ay mga TVs for viewing, and depende. Pwede siya. For commercial passenger aircrafts are divided into different classes such as first class, business class, and economy class. Ako, kaloy sa ginawa nakasakay ra gid ako economy class, but kani mga business and first class someday makasulir ta na. So unsay feeling makasakay first class and business class because it's really expensive. I mean, akong nabawaan is pag if you fly for economy class nga one-way ticket to Los Angeles, the base price nowadays is around, siyempre pandemic pa man. So the base price usually is in 25,000 pesos. Ana? Economy class lang yan 25 to 50,000 pesos. Ganon. But for business class, you will make it up to 80,000 pesos. And then for first class naman, it will cost you around yun, up to let's say 120,000 pesos. Manay rough estimate sa amuhang aviation teacher before. Amot lang ron kay pandemic man sa barato ra ang mga plane ticket, but that is it. So na possibility nga mahal siya pag peak season or mo barato po siya sa exam karon kay lean season. So those things. Okay, now we have let's go to cargo aircraft. So this aircraft, also known as a freighter aircraft, designed to carry cargo in both main and lower deck, so there are no passengers on board. So when you go inside, lahi ra siya gitsura sa lahi ra siya gitsura sa commercial aircraft. Kasi wala siya mga concealing and everything, puro sa mga wire, mga tubo, ang fuselage yun ana. Now, dili sa siya pressurized because there's no need to pressurize it inside. Kaya mga cargo raman na imong karga diha. Unless if na live animals diha, syempre kinahanglan pressurized din siya. But if wala naman, so there's no need. Now, the cargo aircrafts that we have in this world are FedEx and DHL. That's what I know. With FedEx and DHL. Si LBC wala. Barko-barko rin kasi cargo-cargo niya nga cargo trailer pag ginailangan gamiton sa LBC bis naka-afford ng aeroplano pa. Anyway, then we have combination aircraft. So these aircraft is designed to carry both passenger and cargo in the half deck and passenger in the half deck. Okay? So there are designs ng inani cargo tapos kanang cargo tapos tawag ani kanang passengers diri sa likod. But there are also instances nga tawo din sa ibabaw din sa ubos niya are the cargo. Combination siya. Classification of aircraft features. So aircraft are mostly classified on the basis of their features and the number of engine. Okay? So, kung sa may features niya o pila ka book engine, so di ano mababaw ano unsang klaseng aircraft. Mabantay mo ako ganina nag-ihap-ihap ko pila ka doors, pila ka engine, nakain ko ka Airbus A320 ra ni. Those things. So, pag ma-studyhan niyo na, I will give you a picture and then I will ask you to determine what kind of aircraft is it. First is number of engines. So aircraft are single engine, twin engine, or multi-engine. Okay? Muna siya. Number of engines sa aircraft. Single engine, katong sa kabuk sa tunga. Sa iba, sa tunga sa iyang nose. Nasa simod sa aeroplano. That's a single engine and twin engine sa both wings, and then multi-engine. Sa both wings niya, napoy tagurha ka, tagurha ka engines nakabutang. Then range, an aircraft can be short range, medium range, and long range depending on the number of miles it can fly. Of course, for short range aircraft, katuraning taman ra pud og mga Cagayan to Cebu, Dipolog to Cebu, Dipolog to Dumaguete, Dipolog to Davao, Cagayan de Oro. Short range lang, siya pwede makatravel og lagyo. Then we have mid-range, so katunan ni siyang mga lagyo nang naabtan, siguro domestic flights like Davao to Manila, ganun. And then if ever magaling Southeast Asia, duol na po like Singapore, Thailand, Malaysia, nara. But for long range flights, katunan ni mga dinag ko like Manila to New York or Manila to LA or Dubai to Australia non-stop ana so dagko ka siya range na siya. So next we have size and payload capacity. So aircraft can be of different sizes and configurations and can also have different payload capacities. Okay, so the exterior of the aircraft, sa may makita ninyo, first is the wing assembly, of course, kanang wings, di ba? Ako, wings. Then we have the empennage, and then, kanang empennage, sige ng empennage, empennage is the tail of the aircraft. So, katong rudder, o sa katong tulo ka buok mga ikog niya sa aeroplano, that is the empennage. And then we have the fuselage, which is the katong asa mo maglingkod, nasa nakabilong ang cockpit, and then other components nga pwede. Like, namagiuban nga katong manginahanan aircraft nga na floater, di ba? Or na wheels. Depende na siya. So here, so wing assembly, so the components of the wing assemble control, like the increase and decrease drags, control rolling motion, control speed, and increase or lift. So this is it. Okay, so kaning mga control pitch sa horizontal so kana empennage na siya. Diri sa winglet, kaning mga winglet pagkita niyo so they will decrease the drag. Okay, so nakanindot mo ning fuel efficient siya because it will decrease the drag of the aircraft. Mo nang gamit anang na imong winglet. Dili na siya kay gibutang diha para design lang. Okay, mo nang fuel efficient siya kay it will decrease the drag. And then we have the wing which will lift the aircraft, di ba? Na-discuss na ako sa diha. Then we have the turbo engine that will generate the thrust. Okay. Then we have slats to increase the lift. So, mubukad-bukad na siya para mo lupad ng plano. And then we have spoilers change the lift, drag and roll. So kung si spoiler, dili na din siya katong pag mo break na si eroplano, mo kuan mo matabang siya og kanang pahinay or pwede siya mapaubos o pataas. Then si ailerons, mo siya katong reason nga murag kaning tibok lawas sa aircraft kaya mo tuyo clockwise or counterclockwise. And then si flaps, so increase the lift and drag. So kani siya katong kinahanglan na mo brake ni eroplano. This will open pag naghapit na mo hapit na mo landing ang aircraft or naglanding na siya tapos mag-take break na lang siya. Ganon. Hindi siya pwede mo open while nag-fly. Kaya kung mo-open na siya while nag-fly, patay. Muhunong airplane sa tabaw, patay ito ng pasahero. Okay? Then we have the cockpit. Okay? So the command and control. And then we have the fuselage to hold things together and carry payloads. So there is a fuselage, the biggest part of the aircraft. They will carry the passenger and the cargo. And then behind them is the empennage, which is this. So they control the motion or orientation of the rotation of flight in three different angles such as pitch, roll, and yaw. So kani si empennage, kaning tulo ka ikog dire, that is the end part or the aft section of the aircraft. Okay, so dire makontrol na mo up and down and mo left and right. Muna siya ang part nga mo control niya, ana mga butang. Okay, so we have the fuselage. So, three types of fuel tanks. Okay, so di ba sa fuselage nakabutang dito ang fuel tank. Okay? So, first is we have integral tanks, and then we have rigid removable tanks and bladder tanks. Okay, so rigid removable tanks ito na yung pwede ibton din pwede pulihan o katong tangke nga naisulod ng gasolina. Ana siya, but usually pag commercial aircraft, they don't use rigid removable tanks. Okay? If mag-refuel lang kung ano magaling. Then other components, we have aircraft cabin, aircraft stair, cockpit, detail, engines, and landing gears. The landing gears, yun. Okay? So, interior of an aircraft, what's sulod sa aeroplano? If you haven't ridden or if you haven't been on an aircraft before, these are what's inside the aircraft. Pero if you have been to an aircraft, so familiar naman eh. First is the cockpit, and then we have the galley. The galley, the lavatories, the storage areas, passenger seats, and other components nga pwedeng i-add sa airline company. So first is we have cockpit. Now for the cockpit, this is what the itsura of cockpit, guys. So they say pilot mag-drive. Okay? Ganon. So the aircraft, all system, the entire aircraft is controlled and operated from here. So dire maglingkod si pilot o si co-pilot or si first officer. Ganon. Hanggang siya mga buttons, hanggang siya mga controls. So, manang pag mo trabaho mo as a pilot, kung kayo mag-sweldo kay imagine, ani ka na po inyong i-operate. Okay? Then we have the galley. So the galley has the following equipment: high-speed oven, hot beverage container, hot jug or cup, refrigeration, and main storage compartment. So this is it. Dili na rin ta mga cabin crew magtrabaho. Okay? So kani matangtang ni siya na di na siya mga locks diha na mga oven, coffee maker, microwave oven. These things are all kanang useful pag mag-service ta or mag-conduct tag food service sa aeroplano. Then we have lavatories. So in the lavatory, this is the CR of the aeroplano. The lavatory consists of a wash bin, mirror, drawer, smoke detector, baby changing station, and fire extinguisher. Ano man yan may baby changing station? Of course, malibang imong bata, dili pwede nga mag-abay ka sa magkuhan ka, mag-change ka diaper sa sulod sa imong lingkuranan kay manimaho na wala be di pa pwedeng abrihan ang bintana kay kuan so ang baho na tae magbalik-balik lang sa sulod, di ba? It's gross, so you have to change the diapers of your babies pag na mo sa lavatory gano. And then dito ang CR diha, guys, di na pareha ang CR sa ordinary nga banyo ha nga kanang bubuan ninyo ganon. It is vacuum, so pag umani mo bangla diha pita kay pisliton, so yung puno to siya galit. Then, padulong na rin to siya sa kuan, something container sa aircraft. So, I suggest, malibang na lang mo daan before mo fly, para di mo makuha nito, ignorante. Okay, so we have storage areas. So, there are two types of storage areas. One is overhead bins, and then next is coat closet. So, coat closet, kuan coat closet are found in ano na mga first class something or na siya cabinet niya if ever pag mga winter bitaw nga destinations yung mga tuan and then of course pag ara kay imuhang kuan coat you can have your coat be placed in the closet where you can take it out later on if manaog naman sa airport. So overhead bins are the most familiar ones. Una ni siya. So cabin crew, it's not your job to put it here. Okay, but of course, if the customer is PWD or senior citizen, you can help them out. Depende na sa inyo. But if an ordinary person will ask you or order you to put it there, it's not your job. Okay? Huwag kayong magpatalo. So kung maldita sila, di pa rin magmaldita mo, pero you want to tell them that it's not part of your job. Your job is for safety. Yan na. Okay? So passenger seat. So seat consists of surface for sitting, armrest, backrest, and seat belt. Okay, familiar. Sinturong pangkaligtasan. And seat pockets contain a flight safety card and an air sickness bag. So when you open the um, the so yung seat pocket in front of you, you will see a flight safety card. Hindi nyo na siyang basahon guys. Hindi na siya gibutang diya para may mong pay lang. Bugnaw na ang aircraft. Okay? So basahan ninyo just in case mag-emergency at least kabaw mo sa buhaton. And then of course that's why we're doing this, di ba? To inform you about what you will do since if you decide to work as a cabin crew someday, we'll be using this information naman. So next also we have air sickness bag. So it's kind of a paper bag nga dili mulusot ang tubig, okay? Siya na siya murag lining sa sulod nga dili mulusot ang inyong suka dito if ever. You have to peel it off something na kay murag kang birahon nga yung murag ano magadat birahon yung nga papel then yun suka ka lang there pwede naman na siya buhaton dito rin. Of course the cabin crew will then pick it up for you after kanang paon na nila ng air sickness bag puno og sukay, labay na siya. Okay? So, hope that it won't happen to you. It didn't happen to me, thankfully. Di na po ko tagatuon ng biyahe. Then we have other components of the aircraft. So these are the things that you will see on the seat above you. So muna siya makita. First is we have passenger control unit. So kani siya. Kani mga call signs, channel volume. Ay, sorry. Yun nga. Kani siya. This is found in the side of your chair. Okay, so pwede na isaksak nyo yung headset dire. Then pag pisilito ninyo ni mukhaan mo recline inyong chair and pwede mo magpa-call sign, no smoking, ganun. And then this is sunod is passenger service unit. I think yan, baliktad ata ko. Ayun nga, ito nga, this is the control unit and this is the service unit. Yes. Yeah, tama na, I remember na ako. Service unit because these are the buttons that you will press pag minhanglan ka o gabin ko kani sila. Is dito nimo ni kani light then kani kay mo something kuan na siya. Is dito nimo para duulon ka og cabin ko. Then aircraft communication systems, kana mga speakers, and then aircraft lighting system, of course, kani mga suga-suga sa kilid sa inyong bintana or sa inyong silid, sa inyong lingkuranan or the pathways and the overhead sa mga alcuba sa atop sa aeroplano yon. That is those are the other components of the aircraft. Okay, so that is it. And let's move on to our next topic. So now let's go to the last topic, which is the phases of the flight. Okay, so what are the phases of the flight? So phases of the flight, guys, muna siya katong sa may tabo sa habak sa mag-fly mo. Okay, from take off to landing. Ano ba? Ano ba siya? Take off to landing na ba na siya? Ganon. Dili, daghang mga phases na may tabo. So it has to be in order. Walay step nga dapat laktawan in order for the aircraft to fly smoothly. Kay kung imo na laktawan ang isa ka step diha, it could be life threatening. Na yung possibility nga na yung disgrasya mahitabo. Okay, so what are the phases of the flight? First is pre-departure. So sa pre-departure, this is the preparation time for flight. So the pilots will commence with a walk around the aircraft, which is a visual inspection of the entire outside of the aircraft to check for any abnormalities such as oil leak, tire wear, or damaged control surface, etc. They will then program all of the computers in the flight deck in accordance with their flight plan. Check to be sure fuel is loaded and commence all their pre-start and system checks prior to passengers boarding. So pre-departure nga pre-departure nga phase, wala pa ni pasahero sulod sa aircraft. Ang pasahero ani na pa ni sa airport. And then ang buhaton ni pilot, i-check niya ang eroplano. You can though na-check na siya sa mga engineer. Ikaw nga pilot, since ikaw man ang mag-drive sa eroplano, you still have to check the aircraft if there is something wrong. Okay? So, gawas ka before nimo ikuan before nimo pandaro ng eroplano, imo sa siyang i-check dito na mga kuan, sakto na ba gasolina, na those things. Nabe mga liki, ang ligid dili ba flat, those things. Wala ra gud pud ka og kanang ga-check sa imong kagulay auto before ka mo biyahe. Ana siya. Then the cabin crew will check their emergency equipment and in their allocated area, so ensure their harness or seatbelt is adjusted to fit, and check catering supplies before conducting a final security check of the cabin before passenger boarding. So before pasudo ng aeroplano, as cabin crew, your job is to check if all of the safety features of the aircraft are in place and functioning. Okay, just in case naman na kinahanglan ninyo siya kay emergency, magamit ninyo. Okay? Next is we have clearance to taxi. So unsa kung gingon gani sa taxi? Pag taxi dili na siya katong taxi nga color puti nga auto ha. The taxi here in the aviation means that ang aircraft mo gawas sa iyang garahean, mudagan ang eroplano pero dili pa mulupad. Kada pang ligid pa lang niya ang kapaandar. Ganon. So once the aircraft is boarded with passengers, loaded with cargo, and all doors are closed, the pilots will obtain a ground clearance from the airport control tower to taxi. So the aircraft is then pushed back, typically with a tug. Then the aircraft is clear to power under its own steam. So the tug is unhooked and the aircraft will taxi to the takeoff runway or maneuver. So sa clearance to taxi guys, kuha na ni siya kanang apil na ni ano siya nahitabunan ay nakasulod na ang mga pasahero. Now that is not part of the kanang boarding, is not part of the phases of the flight kay kama na siya kanang dili man siya gid kanang emphasized gid nga may ginabuhat sa aircraft ay sa aircraft that is ginabuhat sa airline industry, okay, or sa airline company. So pag naging clearance sa taxi, nakaadto na ka sa from garahe, nakaadto na ka sa katubitong murag bridge kumusta kayong pasahero, and after nimo nakasakay dito, you will be ano na dayon kanang going to the end of the runway, then dito na ni ka pa under sa yung mga aeroplano ka para pa-take off na mo. So that is clearance to taxi, meaning pwede na ka mo pwesto sa lugar kung asa pwede ka magsugod nga magpa-under sa mong makina para kusog kay ka pagkalupad. Next is we have takeoff. Now for takeoff, when the aircraft accelerates to a flying speed that is particular to every flight, it becomes airborne and the landing gear is retracted. So the actual takeoff speed and the distance required for every flight varies due to a number of factors: pressure height, wind speed and direction, aircraft weight, air temperature, flap setting, runway gradient, clearance and operational requirements. So kaning mga butang, these are the job of the these are the job of the pilot to calculate sa kakusga iyahang atuon. But for takeoff guys, as a cabin crew, this is considered as one of the most critical phases of the aircraft or of critical phases of flight. Kaya nga no, dili man gud usually nitabo sa take off ug sa landing kana sila duha ang pinaka-critical nga phases sa flight kay diha man gud usually mahitabo ang aksidente. Promise. Kanang pag take off niya dili ka dayon take off na sabod or saba na ilanggam ni sulod sa engine ibuto ang engine boom sabog na siya pwede na mahitabo. At the same time sa panpod sa landing ana pod siya. So, critical phase ang take-off. Now, as a cabin crew, you will be sitting, ano siya, di mo pwede maglakaw-lakaw ha. Kay, pag mulakaw-lakaw, bitaw mo tapos nag-take off, pwede mo malupad, padulong sa luyo sa inyong aeroplano or makadisgrasya pa mo pasahero dito. So, dapat be careful. And then we have initial climb. So, din sa take-off, naka-advise ang mga pasahero to have their seat belts fastened. Okay? All the time. Dili gyud pwede nang tangan ang seat belt. So, dili gyud gi na po na press na po ni pilot ang fasten seat belt sign is on. So, initial climb, an aircraft needs a lot of power to take off and therefore in normal operational conditions, a power setting close to maximum thrust will be set for takeoff. So, tugjud kayo ni as in promise baka sakay na mag-aeroplane mo kalit og kanang change ang gravity nga murag mapilin mo sa inyong bangko. That's what happens in takeoff. However, like a car engine, jet engines burn more fuel and wear out quicker when working at maximum revs. So the pilot will reduce from takeoff to a lesser thrust for a climb when a safe altitude is deemed to have been reached. So pag nakasaka na gani sa hangin, makanotice mo, maraging kalit na ginahinay ang aeroplano. That's because nag-climb naman siya and na siya ka ng reach na niya ang certain height sa altitude nga murag okay na. Pwede na ta maghinahinay diri. Yun. So that is the initial climb. Now, para po siya kalas sa gasolina. Dili din mo ang makina. This often causes some concern to passengers as they hear the engines reduce their noise output, and often they will feel the aircraft slows down or even feel as though it is falling out of the sky. So dagang nasyudan ka ng mga pasahero nga dubol sa engine kalingkod, they will notice nga lang na hingi lagi ang aeroplano kasi mahugno ang tani ha. No, it's actually safe. Okay? Og padulong na mo ana og kanang kuan og kanang crash musturya ra ng pilot ana guys nga okay kanang fasten your seat belt, prepare for impact ana galon daghang mga ana warning warning something mayday pero as long as wala nag-announce that is perfectly fine. Okay, so the wheels are retracted as soon as the aircraft is airborne to reduce drag and help lift the plane. May tabo ani kuan kanang atong ligid bitaw kung giyon kanina dire ang ligid syempre hipuson na sa aeroplano mo retract na siya mosulod na siya balik. Technically landing gear retraction occurs once there is insufficient runway left to be able to land should an emergency happen. Why the lift Why lift the wheels when they might have to use them in the event of engine failure? It's a safety precaution in that with so little elevation time, you would have enough time to lower the wheels. So, kana mga landing gears, dili ka na siya mo hipos dayon, hinahinay na siya kay just in case daw kuno nga madisgrasya, at least naa pa siya sa ubos. Dili siya na nawala dayon. Okay? So now we have the fifth one, which is the climb to cruise altitude. Now, the climb to cruise altitude, mo na siya katong third for commercial aircraft, mga Airbus, Boeing, that is between 30 to 35,000 feet above sea level. Okay, so above 5 minutes into the climb or longer if experiencing low level turbulence, di ba? Pag turbulence, dili pa na musaka dayon si pilot. Mo dive pa na siya sa ubos kay delikado po na mapayuguyog ang mga tao dito, mapanik niya. So the passenger or the pack seatbelt sign is turned off in smooth conditions. Okay? So this is a cue for flight attendants to be able to unbuckle their seatbelts and commence the in-flight service. At this time, the cabin manager makes the post-takeoff public announcement. Okay, so yun. So, pag wala lang ang seatbelt sign, pwede na mo matindog po, matug lavatory, and then ang mga cabin crew, mag-distribute na din ang pagkaon sa inyo ha. The sixth one is the cruise altitude. So, so this is where the bulk of the flight is spent. Okay, so kung namin mga long haul flights like atong mga 10 hours, 12 hours, 15 hours flight, ganon, diri sa cruising altitude, diri na din mo mag-permanente. Anong diha man sir? So kaya ang pressure diha, na tailwind, ganon, so, hindi na kay kalasugit na kay tabangan man sa hangin ug tulod ang inyong eroplano. Optimum cruise altitude depends upon the weight of the aircraft, and typically an aircraft will ascend or climb as the flight progresses and fuel weight is burned off. While it depends on the wind at altitude, it's more fuel efficient to fly as high as we can for as long as we can. Okay, so muna kong giingon. The higher you go, the safer, the more fuel efficient you become. Pero di po pwede mamulakas mo og 4,000 feet kasi nga, ubos na kayo ang air pressure dito, di na mo kaginhawa. Murag, kabantay mo na akong giingon nga katong time of consciousness. Itong consciousness something. Kasi ito yung mga country na nakapaligid sa Pacific Ocean. One of them is Philippines, Mexico, Canada. Ayun, and then, okay, so I found it. So, katubit ang topic itong time of useful consciousness. Ayun. So, yun nga, sa cruise altitude, pag mula pa sa man gid og 40,000 feet, medyo wala na gid oxygen diha. You will be needing the crew, the entire crew and the passengers to have to will have to wear their own oxygen tanks. And of course, di man provide ana sa atong pasahero. So we will just stay on a safe altitude of 30 to 35,000 feet. So muna siya diha. And then, yun nga, mas fuel efficient man gud siya pag naka sa taas dito kay the tailwind or the winds up there will help your aircraft to fly easily kay tulod sobra ka kusog sa hangin. Tulod naman ang eroplano sa hangin. Matabangan naman tana. Ganun siya. Actually, you might not know it, pero pag nag-cruising altitude na bitaw, some of the aircrafts, di ba, twin engine man ang mga aircraft, duha ka buk makina, duha ka buk makina. Okay, so next let's move on to the descent. So the descent nga phase naman, this is the decrease in altitude from cruise altitude to initial approach altitude. So this is approximately 20 minutes from our estimated time of arrival at approximately. So kanang pag-descent na gani like 20 minutes before ta mo kuan 20 minutes before mo landing. From cruising altitude which is 30 to 35,000 feet, munaog na ta paubot. Okay, hinihinay na. So 10 minutes before landing, the seatbelt sign will be turned on by the flight deck crew, which enables the cabin crew to do a final secure of the cabin for landing. So 10 minutes lang guys, seatbelt sign on na. So kanin kita mga cabin crew, what we'll do is, of course, i-check natin. Last final check na yun. Anong pasahero naka-seatbelt na, kuha na sa mga basura and all, ilang mga gipangkanan, ayun siya. And then next is we have approach. So at this time, the aircraft has to be configured for landing, and this is predominantly predetermined at the flight planning stage. So the aircraft will gradually slow down. The flaps at the rear of the wings and the slats at the front of the wing will be extended to create more lift at a slower speed, which ultimately lowers our landing speed. These wheels will be lowered and then aircraft will line up on what they call the final and continue down the approach path and the landing. So ang aircraft ani guys, mo kuha na siya, napa siya sa hangin pero ang iyahang direction padulong na siya sa runway. As in kanang padulungan na hinihini na gina-open tong mga pampahinay sa eroplano which is katong mga flaps, mga slats, ganon. So para kuha na siya para ang kibala eroplano ani gadungo na siya nga direction padulong na siya sa runway. Pero at the moment bitaw nga mo landing siya, mukalit og hangad ang eroplano. Para ang likod nga wheel sa eroplano mo ay unang madapat sa runway. Dili pwede ang tubangan kay kung atubangan ang maguna, balik man to siya, matuka mo, madisgrasya ang eroplano. Ana siya ka critical ang landing. So next, let's go to the final, last stages, which is the landing na. So this is the critical stage of the flight where the aircraft slows to such an extent that it literally falls out of the sky just inches from the ground. Okay? Kani, marag gamay na lang siya kulang mo landing na siya na. So, mga siya itabo diya. The landing speed is different for every flight and is dependent on the same factors as for takeoff. So, katong mga speed, direction of the wind, na daghang pa mga factors nga pwede maka-apekto sa landing mo ng critical kay siya. The aircraft will deploy lift dampers on top of the wing to break the smooth airflow over the wings and destroy the lift component. So katong sa pako niya na something mo kuan mo mambuka dito, that's the lift damper. So katong mga flaps, slats, and everything like I said. They are often referred to as speed breakers. So while brakes are applied, the reverse engine thrust is also activated. The reverse thrust is where the air exiting the engine is redirected forward to, in effect, blow the aircraft backwards and help slow it to taxi speed. So kanang inyong mga engines sa aeroplano, instead of turning in a way nga such nga mo kusog ang sulod sa hangin, baliktad na po siya. Opposite direction. Ganon para muhinay. So taxi to the terminal. So pag once mudunggo na ang kuan ang eroplano, open na mga flaps, brake na galit. Once na siya sa tumoy sa runway nga naka-brake na siya, mo taxi na pud siya. Mo under na pud ang eroplano papunta sa terminal. So this is maneuvering. This is maneuvering from the runway after landing to the terminal by the taxiways to a designated arrival bay. Okay? Post-flight, so this is where you change cruise or turn around and do everything all over again for the next leg. Yun. So do everything. So taxi na pud ka. So balik na pud ka sa higdanan which is the pre-departure, katong pag-load sa gasolina, paglimpyo sa cabin, check sa cabin sa mga katong mga safety features ganon. When the post-flight and pre-flight phases, one at the end of the flight and the other at the start of the next flight, which is effectively lead into each other. This is often referred to as turnaround. So yun, pag may ganun kang turnaround flight, so Manila to Davao, Davao to Manila. Yun. Parang inulit mo lang ulit yung mga process. That's the face. Those are the phases of the flight. Okay? So that is the end of our discussion. So I will be posting this video and please watch na lang guys. Thank you.